Hi, Grizzlies, and welcome back to another episode of Grizzly True Crime. My name is Gisela K, and today we're going to be looking at the case of a 12-year-old boy from Virginia who passed away on April 14th, 2022. Thank you so much for being here. If you wouldn't mind, please hit the thumbs up and the share button so we could get this case in the algorithm. Okay, that's what we need. This is going to be a call to action kind of case. I think as a community, the goal would be to put pressure on law enforcement to actively investigate this case and close it and solve it. It's kind of in the air right now. It's not officially closed, but they've ruled this. I will tell you everything, don't worry. But they've ruled this little boy's death as a unalive himself event, and just nothing makes sense in this case. It just makes no sense. So, yeah, I'm wearing a Jessica G wearing a red flag. Yeah, a little bit. Oh man, it's just such an unfortunate story. I've made contact with the private investigator in this case, and the Facebook group is called What Happened to Sean. So I'm going to be sharing information from that page today because they've got it all laid out as per the timeline and everything that unfolded from the PI and Ramona, who is Sean Daugherty's mom. Okay. So has anyone not heard about this case? Put a 1 in the chat if you've heard about it and a 2 if you've never heard about this case. I will take you through it all, but man, this is the thing. Why does it seem like law enforcement don't want to do their jobs they do with all these missing or unalive kids? I just find it really strange how they're like, nope, nope, he unalived himself. It just seems so unlikely. Okay, so thank you, Rob. Most of you haven't heard about it. Don't worry, we're going to take it from the top. So I've got a lot to show you today. Let me quickly go to this over here. I just want to see one thing. This is from the Daily Press. Yeah. So I'm going to start with this as a brief overview, and then we're going to dive into the Facebook group and learn everything. Okay. Everything that we can directly from the private investigator and the family. They might actually be on the show at some point. They can't today. But I've told them the platform is always available for them and the Grizzly community. We got their back. All right. Thank you so much, Teddy Bear. You can get this on Redbubble if you want one yourself. So all the links are on my website if you do want that. All right. So here we go for the brief overview discussion. This is Sean Daugherty, a 12-year-old from York County, and he died in April. So on April 14th this year, a 12-year-old York County boy was found. Now, okay, wait. Trigger warning, okay? This case is triggering for a lot of people. It's extremely sad, and I'll try not to be too graphic or anything like that, but it's very upsetting. Okay, so just be aware. Okay, so a boy was found hanging from a swing set in his backyard. Sean's death was ruled a unalive himself event. But recently, after being frustrated by what they say are unanswered questions, the family launched a social media campaign and wants the case reopened. According to Ramona and Jared Rivas, Sean's mother and stepfather, Sean was a bright, happy boy who the night before his death was laughing and joking with family. Now, pay attention to all the facts in this case because they get really interesting. Thank you, Simply Stranger, also for raising awareness on Twitter with us about this case. It's because of you guys, because of Rose at 901, Lulu for telling me about this case. And once I started deep diving, and I'm like, sorry, what? Yeah, no, we need to talk about this. Okay, so and law enforcement's quite snarky about it. I'm going to show you a video that they've also released, which was on August 23rd this year, as like a clapback to the family's social media efforts to try to get justice for their son. And I'm like, whoa, have you no empathy for a grieving family whatsoever? It's kind of weird to hear the police talk like that to this family. Anyway, we'll look at all of that. Of course, you are all entitled to your own opinion, make up your own mind. What I do ask, though, is let's keep the chat respectful. Family will be watching. And let's make sure we do our best to help them. Okay, so just think about if this was your son, right? Or little brother, cousin, whatever. It's just terrible. So Sean was a bright, happy boy who the night before his death was laughing and joking with family. The family's campaign prompted the York, that's a hard word, Pockeson Sheriff's Office to respond last week saying the death was fully investigated. We take these matters very seriously, evaluate all evidence, and consider all possibilities. We will go over the timeline. Hang in there. So Major Ron Montgomery said in a videotape statement, "We will look at that. Much of the information being posted to the social media site is opinion, innuendo, and fabrication, which is not consistent with the evidence that was collected by the sheriff's office investigators during the investigation. But they've also had conflicting stories, the sheriff's office themselves. We're going to talk about a handprint that initially they said, oh, yeah, we did take this print from the window and scanned it for fingerprints, but we couldn't find any matches in the system. And then later they said, oh, yeah, the handprint wasn't clear enough to actually get prints from it. So you see what I mean? That's an example, right? All right. So that April, Sean's sister, Maria, found him hanging from the swing set. He was later pronounced dead at Riverside Regional Medical Center in Newport News. When the sheriff's office ruled the death a unalive himself event, and I have to say it, if you guys are new to YouTube or new to the channel, that's how us YouTubers have to talk. Otherwise, YouTube suppresses the reach of the content, which we don't want in cases like this. Of course, no, we want maximum awareness. So I got to use some code words here and there. He loved Marvel. He loved Disney. He loved his family, but most importantly, he loved life. Jared Rivas said. One of Sean's favorite things to do was read. In fact, at a book fair a few years back, Sean spent $107 of his own money to buy new books. Sean was a sixth grader at Tabb Middle School who dreamed of one day becoming president. He was one of four siblings, including an older sister and two younger brothers. According to his family, he was the kindest of them all, sometimes bringing extra food for a friend at school. By all accounts, from everything I've read about him, and I've listened to all the podcasts out there about this case, watched all the videos I could, and read all the articles, he sounds like an empath, you know? Wow. The autopsy report from the state office of the chief medical examiner states that Sean was found partially suspended by a shoelace type string that was tied to the swing set. While hanging, there was reportedly a nylon bag over his head and a belt strapped around his abdomen, pinning both of his arms to his side, the report says. We're going to get more into it because while law enforcement wants to say, oh, no, this is nothing but an unalive oneself event, thank you, Linda, for being here as I cover this case. Thank you so much. While law enforcement wants to say this is nothing more than unalive, I wish they would explain how they think then he was able to do this at 12 years old and why. Because to have a belt around your waist, pinning your arms to the side, okay, he needs glasses to see. His vision was not good. He needed glasses, okay? So the glasses are not, he's not wearing his glasses. There's a motocross helmet bag over his head, okay? And tied so that he's suspended. Sorry for the graphic details, trigger warning everyone, but suspended by his chin, basically. And his feet are practically touching the ground. They're perfectly clean, touching the ground. And the weirdest thing is, he's wearing his stepfather's clothes. His underpants are found upstairs where he never ever changed in his parents' room. There his underpants are found. Now he's hanging on the swing wearing his stepfather's underpants, his stepfather's dress shirt and pants. Like, what in the hell is this case? And law enforcement is like, nope, nope, nothing to see here. I mean, yes, arms strapped to his side. So you want to tell me that a 12-year-old, how would it physically be possible to do this to oneself? To manage to tie a bag around your head, not wear your glasses, can't see anything, shoes are off, okay, so his feet are not dirty either. It's as if he was carried there because there's no mud or wet grass or anything under his feet. And his hands are tied to his side and he's hanging from a swing. Like, it's just like, what? I don't understand. It's very suspicious. Okay, so they say it's also noted that he was wearing, yes, his stepfather's clothes and was barefoot. His glasses were on the ground nearby and no note was found. But you know what? One of the lenses of his glasses was never found. It's as if somebody took a trophy, if you know what I mean. Never found one glasses lens. What is that? Never mind. I'm just filling in a few things that I've learned as well along the way, and we'll look at the Facebook page. Never mind that throughout the house, for instance, this Ramona, his mother, only bought trash bags from Costco and they had red handles. But here in the house was two trash bags with blue handles all of a sudden. No one knows where they came from. But no, the police say this is just him, 12 years old, unaliving himself all of a sudden. He got a peach out of the kitchen cupboard, put it in a bowl as a snack, was going to take the trash out as part of his chores, submitted a photo to his school to show that he'd done his homework, was about to play Fortnite, and that's that. And we're going to get into, because you guys are going to say, where are the parents and all that? We're going to get into that whole timeline. They'd popped out for a bit. Okay, so they say in the parents' bedroom, Sean's underwear was on the floor and the dresser doors were open. Before his death, Sean was babysitting his 2-year-old brother at the house while Ramona Rivas took her mother to a doctor's appointment. So Sean's grandmother, right? Sean was excited to watch his little brother, Ramona said. Jared Rivas, meanwhile, was in Williamsburg with their second youngest son for an appointment. So Ramona's taking Sean's grandmother for an appointment. She said the appointment will be about 25 minutes. She won't be long. Can Sean just watch his little 2-year-old brother? And he said, cool, he's so excited. And he's going to do his chores and babysit his brother. And the stepdad was also out taking uh, one of the siblings to an appointment as well. This is what I want to know as well, Seema. Why do officials insist? The reason is I think they don't want the community to freak out or think there's a killer on the loose. So they're like, no, there's no sign that there's a killer in this community. But, okay. It's like, it just sounds a little bit strange. Yeah, so the stepdad was also out, as we see here. Jared was in Williamsburg with his second youngest son for an appointment. During Sean's last moments, he completed his homework, started taking out the trash, made a snack, and even had a quick call with his mother about an hour before his body was discovered. In the medical examiner's report, it's noted that no known history of depression or unaliving was found. It does note that the police investigation raised the possibility of bullying at school, but his family said that except for one incident in December, they're unaware of any other bullying that said Sean didn't seem to be overly upset by it. His family questions how the examiner and police were drawn to the conclusion of him taking his own life, especially with Sean's behavior the night before. The night he passed, Ramona bought some cookies, and a couple of them were carrot cake. He was so excited about that cookie. He was like, Mom, this is great. Mwah, so good. Jared said, remembering Sean doing a comical chef's kiss in response to the cookie, in eliciting laughter from the rest of his family. Soon after, Sean had his normal catch-up session with his mom before bed. Every night, no matter what, he would come up and follow Ramona around. He would just follow her around and talk to her about whatever they talked about. Jared Rivas said. And that was the same thing Wednesday night before he passed. Every time the catch up sessions got finished, he'd turn and look at us. He'd go, well, good night, guys. I love you, and bounce down the hall. The family was expecting to move soon. Ramona Rivas was a lieutenant colonel in the US Air Force, and she recently had accepted a new position at the Pentagon. So, literally today, she can't make the interview because she's at the Pentagon and they're not allowed any electronics in there. Okay, so here they say once she got the call, she told her family the news at dinner. Sean jumped up screaming with excitement and said he couldn't wait to tell his friends that his mother worked for the Pentagon. He wanted to know if he could go into the Pentagon and get some of the milk chocolate candies with the iconic building stamped on top. On the first day, when I went into the Pentagon, I went into the chocolate shop and bought one. It's next to Sean's picture, she said. In August, the Rivas family didn't want to stay silent anymore, they said, and the social media campaign ignited. Signs with at what happened to Sean, use that hashtag if you post this on social media, started appearing across town, and a Facebook page titled What Happened to Sean formed, which we're going to look at. The family also started a petition, which is in the description box, change.org, called What Happened to Sean. Please sign it, Grizzlies. And remember, when you sign it, name, surname, email address, and then you have to check your email to click on the link to finalize your signature. Okay, so we don't want this to be a fight with the York Pocoson sheriff. All we're asking for is another option, Jared Rivas said. I mean, you hear how we're describing him the night before he passed. We all got back from a cruise and he got his passport done on Tuesday, April 12th, which he was thrilled about. He didn't know he was going to be alone until he got home from school. He couldn't have planned this. Beyond the statement released on Facebook, no more details about the case will be released to the public, said the sheriff's office spokeswoman, Shelley Ward. We just wanted to get out our information to put their minds at ease, Ward said. There's not someone in our community that's out killing people and we're not investigating it. We take all matters seriously. The medical examiner's office also made a statement saying that in cases where a family disagrees with the cause of death, they are given an opportunity to present any new information. In cases where the family suspects that someone killed their loved one, we ask families to contact the investigating law enforcement agency immediately to express their concerns. The statement continues, we advise that law enforcement should be involved as they need to conduct the necessary follow-up on the new information. If law enforcement determines the information to be pertinent to our death investigation, then they will present it to our office and the medical examiner will evaluate this new information to determine if cause of death and or manner of death needs to be amended. According to the Rivas's, there were many things out of place the day of Sean's death. All they want is for someone to give the case another look. And that's what we're here for, Grizzly. To put the pressure on a little bit, right? I will. Ozzy Mozzie says, "Can you post a link to this article in the chat?" I'm going to pin it to the comments afterwards. I'll make sure to pin everything that we're going to go over today so that you can easily see it. It's the Daily Press, as you can see, what happened to Sean. The parents say, "We're not investigators. We're just parents that lost an amazing kid," Jared Rivas said. No matter what, no one can argue that he doesn't deserve a second shot, right? Rotan says, "There's definitely someone in that community that did that. It's very odd." Now wait till we go into the details. You guys are going to see. Thank you so much, the Aussie Mozzie. This link is quite long, but I'll post it here. There's the link to the article I've just read. I'm going to pin it in the comments as well. Okay? So we're going to use our voices all the way from the Netherlands and abroad, international audience. I find it really helps because I live in the Netherlands. I don't know. I find sometimes it's like, oh, damn, because it's an international audience that we have here as Grizzlies. And when cases reach an international audience, I don't know, sometimes it hopefully will inspire law enforcement to be like, oh, maybe we should look at this because they really should. If you are a content creator and you are watching this, please cover this case. Even if you just make a shorts can go very far these days. A community post, that would be amazing too. Please, if we can get the information out, just so that law enforcement can take a relook at this case. And actually, as the parents said, could you close the case then? If you say, nah, it's kind of closed. That's the problem. It's kind of in limbo. So they don't have privy to the documents. They can't see the full autopsy report. They can't have access to anything because the investigation is still like open, not officially closed, but yet they're saying it's just a simple matter of unalive himself, right? Oh my word. Okay. And a 12-year-old too, April. How would he tighten a belt around himself with both hands by his side? It makes zero sense. Wow. What happened to this boy who did this to him? So we're going to look. Okay. What we're going to do is I'll quickly show you. Here is the GoFundMe account that they have as well. They say our 12-year-old son, Sean, tragically passed away on 14th of April, 2022. The local sheriff's office silenced the community, and they did. We'll see their snarky response. There's no news stories or mentions of Sean's death besides his obituary on the internet. From the beginning, they've refused to investigate this as anything other than unalive. We have hired an outside investigative firm out of pocket and are pushing for the local sheriff's office to turn this case over to the state police or the FBI to investigate as a homicide. Please help us get justice for our son and take a killer off the streets. So this is what the police are upset about. They're like, there's no killer on the streets. But there could be. I mean, if I were to speculate real far and wide, there could be a serial killer because this is so strange. It sounds like to change his clothes, to undress him, leave his underwear in his parents' room, and then dress him in his stepfather's underpants and pants and dress shirt. Okay. And then also take his stepfather's motocross helmet bag. Wow. You know what I mean? It feels like a statement at the stepfather if I just follow my gut feel of like, who's doing this and why? Who's so angry and what are they doing? But to think that the one lens of his glasses has never been found, to think of how he was found, to think of also his 2-year-old brother that he was babysitting at the time, telling his parents, because, he could talk, but not much. But they said to him, did you see anything, buddy? Like, what did you see? And he's like, oh, he said, Sean's friend came over and he was punching him and he was making punching motions with his hand. Like his friend came over and he was punching him. Who's his friend? Of course, the little boy's only 2, but that's what he said. Now the police say, no, we never heard those statements from the family. Okay, but the family is making the statements. They're saying that's what the 2-year-old said. So could you maybe look into it? And there's so many weird things in this case that it just makes no sense. So, oh my word. Lorraine says it kind of feels like it's a message to the stepfather, maybe someone he's associated with. Could be, I don't know. Both the stepdad and his mom are high-ranking officials in the Air Force. And Ramona works at the Pentagon. So, I don't know what to say, right? Where is the biological father? I'm not 100% sure on that. I've been digging into this case for a few days now. That's what I have so far. And then I've just signed this. So how do we, just hold on one second. I want to copy the link and just put it here to see. There we go. Here's the change.org. Here's the petition. 21,235 or 36 as signed. Let's get it to 25,000. So that's what I've also put in my description box. Where is it now? Here. Copy the link. I'm just going to share this. So just remember, you got to fill in your name, last name, and email, and then sign it, and then go to your email and click on the link to finalize so that your signature will be added to the tally here. Let's get it. Let's get it to 25,000, right? It's also so strange how none of the neighbors noticed anything happening. That's so weird. They said they identified 6 houses that had like 2 levels where they could actually see into the yard. That's also strange. And then one of the neighbors across the street, this is a very safe community too. We'll look at exactly where now. York, Virginia, very safe community. Across the street was a neighbor with surveillance cameras that they deactivated years ago. Oh my word. Like, it's just, that would have helped so much. You would have seen everything, right? This is the thing, Jeanette. They are making the family seem like delusional loons. They know their child better than anyone. If they say he would never, then he would never. Trust the family. He would never change in their room. That was number one, He asked his mom, can he play Fortnite? And she was like, sure, get the iPad. It's on the charging station. Have you done your homework? Yes. And he submitted a photo to the school to show that he'd done his homework. That was one of the things they had to do. Like, oh my word. So yeah, the 2-year-old said a friend was hitting him. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Okay, so now let me go to the Facebook group. Here, let's first start here. Okay. So this is the Facebook group. It's called What Happened to Sean. It's extremely well run. They've got lots of information, and it's honestly the best place to go for information, I would say. So let's look at these posts. This is post number 2. I'm not 100% sure where post number 1 is, but post number 2 is where it starts right from the bottom here. And I'm going to read you all the posts. I think they've got about 11 of them because it explains everything. A lot of the questions you may have will be answered with these posts. Let me just try to zoom in a little bit. Okay. Yes, sign for Sean. Yes. Okay. And also, let's just put this quickly over here. If you have any information that would aid the investigation, please email whathappenedtoshawn@gmail.com, or you can call the tip line at 804-905-8613. And then, of course, you can sign the petition, donate to the GoFundMe, follow this page as well. Here we go. So let's look at post 2, family dynamics. Thursday, April 14th, 2022 was a normal day in the Daugherty Rivers household. Sean Daugherty was the second oldest child in a blended household that consisted of his mother, Ramona, his stepfather, Jared, his older sister, Maria, who was 16 and in 10th grade, and his 2 younger half-brothers who were 5 and 2 at the time. Their 79-year-old grandmother, Vija, also lives with them, and she has for the entirety of their military career. So always lived with them because it's a military family, right? Ramona and Vaya, I would say, was born and raised in Latvia. This proud family lived on Sandalwood Lane in Yorktown and were a tight-knit group who kept to themselves. All right. Sorry, there we go. I just want to take the banner off so we're not distracted. Hold on one second. There we go. Okay. Okay. Thank you also to Blue Muse. We got the best mods in the house, of course. Best mods. So use your best mods emoji if you agree with that. Okay, so here they say, this proud military family lived on Sandalwood Lane in Yorktown and were a tight-knit group who kept to themselves. They'd been there for a few years and were great neighbors, but hadn't made any forever friends on the block. The Rona had made socializing difficult, but the kids had friends and the family would occasionally wave and make small talk with neighbors. Sandalwood Lane is in the Wythe Creek Farms, HOA, Homeowners Association, an organization known for its pristine lawns, low fences, and immaculate upkeep. This idyllic neighborhood gave the family a false sense of security, and they neglected to install a security system. Truth be told, they felt so safe, in this house that even doors were seldom locked. They had just sold the house and were renting back for a few months from the new owners while prepping for a move to the Pentagon. They were all sad to end their time in the Tabb district, but they were excited for their next chapter in DC. They were set to move in a few weeks. On this particular morning, the entire week, in fact, spirits were high in the house. The week before was spring break, and they'd gone on a Disney cruise. Everyone had the best time, and they were all high on their experience. They had such an awesome time that on Tuesday evening, the 12th of April, Ramona took Sean to renew his passport at the Pocahontas Library because they booked a second Disney trip for August to Alaska. Everyone, particularly Sean, was stoked for this trip. Sean was a straight A student. Things came naturally to him, and he was also a gifted musician. He had several friends, and when interviewed after his death, they all recalled him to be happy. This day in particular, teachers and students interviewed remember Sean laughing in class, being excited, and could not recall anything out of the norm. Ramona spoke to them all personally, and each echoed the same sentiment that Sean was not a troubled child and had exuded happiness that day. Okay. Now, here is a video that I'm going to play for you, which will show Ramona his mom. Can you guys hear it?
They have told me a few times that they really don't know how to investigate this kind of murder case because it's really complicated. They don't have the experience. They have never seen something like this before. Then please do me the favor and turn it over to the state police or FBI who do it all the time. We just had amazing vacation. He just got back on a Sunday. It was the reward for the kids. He had got all A's. He was in a very good spirit. It was like a regular day, and my mom.
I'm just going to stop right here just to show you the community. I mean, it really is pristine lawns, beautiful houses. I see a swimming pool there. It looks really nice, right? I'm hoping YouTube doesn't block this video because of the music in the background, but I'm glad to show it to you if you are here in the live stream right now. Okay. That's why it's important to make sure your notifications are on. So you're here with me live because sometimes I have to cut out certain segments when YouTube gives me problems. So look at the community. It looks amazing, right?
Comes out. She's like in a hurry. The doctor's office called and said, hey, she needs an EKG. But the appointment is only 25 minutes. It's a safe neighborhood. And he said, Mom, don't worry. I got it. You know, I love babysitting. He was reading his book later. I could see he had pulled it out. Mom, Shirley's not answering the door. Police and ambulances just went by and fire trucks. And I was like, my stomach dropped. The chair wasn't exactly next to him. Please don't ask many questions.
I'm going to pause here as well. So this is a picture of the swing set where he was found, where he was hung from, with a bag over his head and his arms strapped to his side with a belt. Oh my word.
I told them Sean didn't do it. He was killed. That first night, I told them all. I need to see where's my youngest one. He was like an exhausted doll. He opened his eyes. He was all sweaty. It looked like he had been crying. Personally, I think that he woke up from the hustle and bustle, what was happening. I saw all kinds of stuff in the house that was out of place. I froze because I was like, that's a huge handprint on the door.
This is the handprint I was talking about earlier. Okay, sorry, I just pause every now and then for fair use in case there's any issues with this video, but it is on Facebook if you do want to see it on the group, which I've linked in the description box as well, What Happened to Sean, and we'll continue looking at the post right after this video.
That's not Sean's. Hand was not from the outside, but from the inside. And it was the left hand. I saw some splatters that seemed like small blood things that I asked them to collect. Sean definitely had blood on when I did the picture on his hand, but the officer, she washed it off. The belt was tied around my son. Oh, they said, oh, he probably tied it himself and all that. So why there was no DNA on the belt? 4 weeks later, taking fingerprints. 4 weeks later, after we raised hell, 4 weeks later, going around the neighbors asking if they saw anything. I screamed in the hospital saying, my son was murdered. There's something really wrong. When I walked into our bedroom, I literally almost walked onto Sean's underwear.
Oh man, that must have been so shocking to walk into a bedroom and be like, holy moly, why is his underwear on the floor? Right?
They were there. Sean never, ever in his life has taken his underwear off in my bedroom. There's no reason for it. And it was a cross from my husband's clothes, and my husband's drawers were opened up because Sean was dressed in my husband's clothes. So was the ambush in his room then, and then he dragged him, or they fought all the way to our bedroom. So he was interrupted. Did they wrestle to get up the stairs? Did they fight their way up? I don't know. I think that someone saw something, and I think not just one. I think a couple people saw something, but I know there was no real investigation.
Which really sucks. And that's what we all want. A proper investigation with explanations on why on earth law enforcement thinks that this 12-year-old did this to himself.
If you ask the parents to find the person who did it, and we are not investigators, there's a problem. They're asking me to find the person. We don't want to investigate, just say it. I have a text where it says, it's time to move on and live my life. I know we have really good neighborhood, and I know people want to help. They just don't know that we are asking for help.
Okay, so here we go. So I'm going to put this back here. If you have any information that would aid the investigation, please email whathappenedtoshawn@gmail.com or call the tip line at 804-905-8613. Thank you all for being here. We're going to continue to look at the posts on this Facebook page. Okay. Oh my word, here's the peach. Wait till we hear about the peach. Okay, so just hold on 1 second. That was post 2. Post 3, the peach. Okay. What I want to show you, I'm going to talk about post 3, the peach, and then I want to show you what law enforcement has said as a clapback to this social media group, which they should never be clapping back. In my opinion, they just come across as really cold-hearted and having no empathy for this family. They're not very consoling or like, man, I'm sorry that this happened, but we believe it's this because of. No, they're like quite defensive and cold. So let's look at this peach story. Then we're going to look at what law enforcement said, and then we're going to go back to the post because there's many of them. I think there's 11 posts or so we can figure out exactly what's going on here, right? Okay. So let's just zoom in for you. The peach. Okay, sorry. Where's the picture now? Oh, there we go. Okay. Okay, so here's a picture of the peach. You see it? And here they say, on April 14th, 2022, Sean got off the bus at about 3:02 p.m. and walked the distance of 2 houses to his front door. Via, the grandmother, was home watching the youngest brother, but was in a rush. As soon as Sean entered the house, she told him to watch the toddler who was asleep on the couch, and she exited. Ramona had just pulled up to the house to pick up Via for a medical appointment and called out to Sean as he entered the house and said she'd call him from the car. He was to watch his brother for 1 hour while she took Via to the doctor. Sean happily agreed. He loved to watch the toddler. He said he had homework to do and would complete his chores before gaming with his friends. He submitted his homework assignments online, one of which included him submitting a photo of himself holding up his work at 3:09 p.m. There was nothing out of place. From the car, Ramona called him a second time. She had just talked to her husband, who said that their 2-year-old had been napping for almost 2 hours and needed to be woken up or he'd never sleep that night. Ramona called Sean to revise the plan and asked him to wake his brother up, give him a snack, and maybe watch a movie with him downstairs. Sean laughed and said, "Mom, I'm pooping. I got it." And they had a chuckle. His bathroom was on the second floor. Ramona called a third and final time from the car at 3:27 p.m. and Sean answered right away. She said she realized that he'd been excited to play his games and suggested that Sean bring his brother with him up to the second floor so that he wouldn't have to change his plans. Sean loved the idea and said he would get his brother all set up on an iPad upstairs with him. Perfect. She told him where the iPad was charging on the second floor so he could grab it and get everything set up. But first, before he woke his brother, he needed a snack. He took some jarred peaches out of the fridge, one of his favorite after school snacks, and put one into a bowl. Sean's chore was to take the trash out, and we believe at 3:30 p.m. his alarm went off as he was preparing his snack, and he went upstairs quickly to complete his chore. He gathered the trash from the two upstairs bathrooms and came downstairs to gather the trash in the kitchen. This is where things get weird. The kitchen trash was never taken out. His Crocs were found next to the trash in the kitchen. No one in the house was ever barefoot, and in fact, Sean had a strange thing about being barefoot. He never walked around like that. He couldn't stand it. Again, trust the family. What happened as he was gathering the trash? Sean's 2-year-old brother recalls only that there was a friend chasing Sean around and punching him. He also said the man touched his arm. Was someone in the house? Who? Ramona's last call before she entered the appointment was the last time she or anyone spoke to Sean. He never logged in to play Fortnite with his friends. He never took the iPad off the charger for his brother. His Crocs were found upside down next to the trash, and the trash was never taken out. On the counter sat an untouched jarred peach. Oh, my word. That's the thing. Jeanette said, you mustn't discount what his baby brother said. Although he's 2, they're still capable of saying what they see. Exactly. I mean, is he just like making that up? You know what I mean? Are people thinking, no, man, like with all these things, you know, when there's just too many coincidences that you're like, this is way off. Like, you know, everything about it just screams red flags, right? It just sounds very strange. Also, there's a podcast called Going West that did a podcast episode on this case, and they were speculating about what these little marks in the peach could be, but it's probably from like a fork getting the peach out of the jar. You know what I mean? Could be. April says this was done by someone who knew he was alone. So sad. So the families had no sympathy from law enforcement. They haven't consoled them at all. They've had no justice for their son. They've been told to move on. And the police are just like, come on, man. This is just, he unalived himself and we're not releasing details because he's a minor. Wow. That's the thing. Katie says, how many coincidences until it's mathematically impossible? And that's the question. Okay, so if I go up here, post 4 where is Sean, we're going to go over that, but now I want to show you what the police said, which is this York Poquoson Sheriff's Office from August 23rd. The police here say recent statements have caused concern in the community that the death of a 12-year-old on April 14, 2022 has not been fully investigated by the sheriff's office, and that there may be a killer in our area and that poses a threat. Nothing could be further from the truth. Wow. Okay then. So I don't mean to interject this. I'm just saying that they said the same with Dahmer. I've just finished watching the Dahmer series on Netflix. As you may know, I wrote a book on Dahmer. So it was a really good series. And it's like, even then, the neighbors were like, hello, something's really wrong here. Like trying to tell law enforcement back then. And they're like, there is no threat to anyone. So it's just like, really? You're just going to be like, nothing could be further from the truth. There's a big statement. You know what I mean? It's not just saying, well, that's not true. We have investigated and here's the proof or whatever. It's like nothing could be further from the truth, you know? Exactly. That's the thing. The Aussie Mozzie, this is not going to move on. Grizzlies raise the noise. And I know you Grizzlies, I want to say roar, but I suppose grizzly bears would like growl, right? We're going to growl it right up. We got to keep that squeaky wheel squeaking on, keep the pressure on, and just be like, what the hell is going on in this case? More eyeballs, the better. So make sure that you like this episode and share it so we can get this case into the media spotlight. Okay? Yeah, that's the thing. Okay, so let's trust the family. So now let's look at this, what the police say.
Recent statements have caused concern in the community that the death of a 12-year-old on April the 14th, 2022 has not been fully investigated by the sheriff's office and that there may be a killer in our area that poses a threat. Nothing could be further from the truth. It has been the long-standing policy of the York Poquoson Sheriff's Office to not release information relating to cases of suicide, particularly those cases that involve children. We do everything within our power to preserve the privacy of the grieving family. We take these matters very seriously, evaluate all evidence, and consider all possibilities. The York-Pocoshin Sheriff's Office is aware of a recent social media site created to provide the public with theories surrounding the death of this 12-year-old. Much of the information being posted to this social media site is opinion, innuendo, and fabrication.
Okay, it's only the mother of the deceased 12-year-old that's trying to get justice for her son, or answers, or for you to actually investigate properly and close the investigation instead of leaving it up in the air, kind of open, wondering what happened. But then you're saying, no, he just unalived himself. But to say that to a mother who's just trying to find answers, to be like, this is nothing but opinion, blah, blah, blah. Like, really? Really? Oh my word, I feel so snarky when I see this.
Which is not consistent with the evidence that was collected by Sheriff's Office investigators during their investigation. Once that evidence was collected, it was submitted to the Department of Forensic Science for evaluation and later to the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner. By law in Virginia, it is the Chief Medical Examiner's responsibility to determine the manner and cause of death which they, the Chief Medical Examiner's Office, determined to be a suicide. In addition, the Sheriff's Office met with the family on multiple occasions and gave them the opportunity to discuss this investigation. Additionally, an offer was made to have a group meeting after.
And the family has said that's totally false. That now they're going to say, well, we, extended the offer for them to meet with us and they never did. You're law enforcement. Go there, knock on the door if you need to. Oh my word.
After the findings of the Chief Medical Examiner's Office, that would include the family, members of the York-Pocoshin Sheriff's Office, and the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner. As of this date, the family has not expressed interest in scheduling the meeting. Instead, they chose to post this video publicly. There were several key points that were made in this video that the Sheriff's Office will address. First, in the video, the mother said, "They have told me a few times that they really don't know how to investigate this kind of murder case because it's really complicated." The implication being we, the York-Pocoshin Sheriff's Office. That statement is absolutely not true and was never made to this mother. Our investigators are recognized in the Hampton Roads area as professional, caring, competent major crimes investigators. They have investigated.
Do you find his tone compassionate and caring? He sounds defensive and angry and condescending to me, right? They're like, how dare they share that video out there? It's almost like, no, don't you dare make us look bad. But you're making yourself look bad. You know what I mean?
And solved numerous cases that include homicides, suicides, rapes, and robberies. They have several decades of investigative experience within the division. The investigation divisions consist of graduates of the Virginia Forensic Science Academy, which has certified them as crime scene experts. Along with processing the scene and interviewing witnesses and the family, investigators interviewed a significant number of people to include surrounding neighbors, lawn care personnel, school officials, friends of the 12-year-old, and other community members. The results of these initial interviews did not identify any potential suspects. Also during the course of this investigation, the family provided information on individuals they believe may be involved in the case. Their suspicions were based on people that they merely believed to be in the area at the time of the incident. These individuals were all located, interviewed, and ruled out as persons of interest by Sheriff's Office investigators.
Right. So then they were there. They had a little bit of tea and cookies with them, interviewed them, and it's over, guys. I mean, I think we're gonna read some more of those posts, but from what I understood, they've now installed cameras, and they can, because they want to see if anyone like revisits the crime scene, right? And they can see an individual, which might just be someone who takes a nighttime stroll, but this individual comes past the house quite often at night. So that's interesting as well. Just to say to law enforcement, can you maybe just look into this? There's some kind of makeshift memorial as well that someone else has set up, and they keep on revisiting that. Weird. But that's the thing. Doodlebug Lori, say the child's name. There's no condolences given from law enforcement here, what I could see. It just sounds angry. He doesn't sound like, I'm so sorry that this 12-year-old has died. I'm so sorry to the grieving family. We've done the best we could. We have fully investigated this, and then that's why the investigation is closed. But yet it isn't closed. That's the thing. They kind of want to be really, I don't know what word to use for this, but really, I'm trying to pick my words carefully. Hold on. Let's just say defensive and like, we got this. But then why is the investigation still open? Why don't you then say, you know what? The reason we know that this is an unaliving himself event is because of this and this and this and this, and therefore the investigation is closed. But it isn't closed. It's still kind of open. That's the problem. It's up in the air. So can you imagine just leaving a family in that position? And what is the family supposed to do then? Like, okay, wait, so the investigation is still pending, it's still open, but yet you've said from the medical examiner, which they won't show the family the full reports and things, because like, no, this is unaliving himself. I mean, wow. Right?
The evidence collected and documentation shows many discrepancies in the version that was put forth on the family's page. The videos and photos you see on their social media site are not from the actual scene.
It's only from their home, but okay. I really hate to ask, but was Sean interfered with? Thank you for censoring that. I really appreciate it. He apparently was not. According to the medical examiner, they say there was no evidence of SA. But I don't know. From what I understand, the family doesn't have the full report. So do they really know? Because that's what they thought. Like, oh my word, what if there was SA and the medical examiner said, nope, none of that. Wow. Okay.
They have been fabricated. First, the video of the man walking in front of their house is from 1 month after the incident, not the day of the incident.
Obviously.
2, the blood spatter image.
Look at his like 2. Let me tell you something. Of course, the video is from a month later, and it's depicting someone who goes for night walks right past their property and kind of lingers around. So they're just like, whoa, this is a little bit strange. That's why they have the cameras now. So they can see, does anyone revisit the scene? Do they come and check on things or not? And they've seen this person and like, this is a little bit strange. Maybe we should tell law enforcement. And they're like, well, who would expect to tell law enforcement and have such a response of like, well, that was from a month later. Well, that's the point. That's exactly the point. It's a month later and beyond. That's why they submitted it.
Depicted in the video was not from the scene. However, we went back to the home on May 20th, 2022 at the request of the family. During that visit, the mother pointed out a red stain on the wall in the upstairs area of the home. Investigators photographed that stain on that date. Later, investigators reviewed the photographs that were taken on April the 14th, 2022, the day of the tragedy, and that stain was not present on that wall.
Okay, and just know, with his snarky clapback here, that's the only way the family found out if the picture actually had the stain on that day or not. Because guess what? Law enforcement took a bunch of pictures of the entire scene and everything they found, but never showed the family. So when the family says, well, there's a red stain on the wall here, what do you think it means? And they're like, well, hello, it means nothing because the stain wasn't there. Well, great. That's the first time the family heard about it. Because that's one of the pictures they're now showing. Are like, you see, duh, there was no stain here. Well, you could have just given them all the pictures and then they would know that. You know what I mean?
On April the 14th, 2022.
Yes.
In the mother's video, she states that her 2-year-old child witnessed the events that occurred in the house. During a recorded interview on April the 14th, 2022, between the mother and sheriff's office investigators, she stated when she left the house that afternoon to take her mother to an appointment, the child was asleep. When she returned home after the tragedy had been discovered, she is quoted as saying to the sheriff's office investigator, quote, "Thank God he was still asleep," meaning the 2-year-old. The information that she stated.
Oh, my word. I think she knows her own child. And there were calls in between, as we read, where the stepdad said, no, he's already had a nap. We want him to sleep tonight. Wake him up. Make sure. That's why the whole babysitting thing happened. Amy, sure. If you can call them, great. We need to make sure that they know the pressure's on to just please give this family answers. If you truly believe that he unalived himself, explain then how you came to that conclusion. show the autopsy reports. How do you know that? Right? My word.
Stated in her video about the 2-year-old has never been disclosed to the sheriff's office. In the mother's video, she states there was mud in the backyard, even refers to it as swampy. And she noted that there was no dirt on the 12-year-old's feet. Images from the day of the incident on April the 14th show that the grass was not wet and the yard was not swampy.
But his feet were perfectly clean, not a blade of grass on his feet, as if he'd not even walked on the ground, which is what she meant. He's like, look at this. This looks perfect. It's fine. Okay, but the family was saying it's as if he was carried there because there was no mud, no dirt, no anything on his feet. Right?
There have been many statements on this website regarding the alleged staging of the scene. The photo of the backyard displayed on the social media site shows a swing set and a chair. It's important to note that the swings that are wrapped over the top post of the swing set and the chair were moved by York County Fire and Life Safety personnel in order to create enough space to render life-saving measures. The chair was moved from its original location under the swing by fire and life safety personnel where the 12-year-old was hanging, to the front of the swing set, and the swings were moved to provide workspace. Our investigation determined that the chair was originally located on the deck at the rear of the home and was moved to the swing set area. Also, during the course of our investigation, DNA samples were collected from the cord that the 12-year-old was found suspended from. This cord was not a shoestring. It came from a motorcycle helmet bag that belonged to the stepfather that had been previously located in the garage. The 12-year-old's DNA was the only DNA found on this cord. Specifically, the DNA swabs were taken from the knot placed in that cord, and the only DNA on that knot belonged to the 12-year-old.
Now, what if there was someone else there, a killer, let's say, and they told him to put the bag over his head and tie it with a string, knowing a little bit about crime and how to commit crimes, right? So that to me doesn't explain it away, because the next would be, so you're telling me that this 12-year-old took a peach out and was going to play Fortnite, did his homework, submitted a photo, was all excited for the Disney cruise he just came back from and was going on, had a great day at school and all of that. And suddenly, within the space, in a small time gap where his parents aren't home, like literally leaves the peach there and everything. And then suddenly everything changes. Suddenly his underpants is in his parents' room. Suddenly he's wearing his stepfather's clothing. Okay. Bag is on his head, string wrapped around. And and then what? And then straps his own arms to the side. First moves the chair closer so that he could then like unalive himself on the swing set. But yet his feet were so close to the ground, they were like dragging on the ground. So even if he had tried to do that, he could have saved himself, if you know what I mean. Oh my gosh. And exactly. Sorry, I don't know who killed him, but this child did not offer himself. And the red stiletto says killer could have been wearing gloves. Duh. I know, right? It sounds so scary. Wow.
In the video, there is an allegation that members of the YPSO, the York Poquoson Sheriff's Office, washed blood from the 12-year-old. At no point did any member of the Sheriff's Office clean or remove any blood from the scene or the child. At the hospital, investigators placed bags over the 12-year-old's hands prior to him being transported to the medical examiner's office. This is common practice to prevent the loss of any potential trace evidence. Based on the fact that the family was telling us that neighbors had information that they were providing to the family about possible suspects, our investigators went back to interview those neighbors, and none provided any additional information or new investigative leads. There is a statement in the mother's video about the unusual location of the 12-year-old's underwear. The clothing that the 12-year-old was wearing when he was located that day belonged to his stepfather, to include the stepfather's shirt, pants, belt, and stepfather's underwear. The 12-year-old's underwear were found in the same room where his stepfather's clothes were kept.
Okay, so where was the 12-year-old's? This is the thing. The 12-year-old's original clothing was never found in the house. Never mind that the two other trash bags found in the house had blue handles and not red handles like every other trash bag in the house that the mother bought from Costco's. So we have two foreign trash bags out from external sources that they have no idea where this came from. Trash bags with blue handles. And the 12-year-old, Sean, he always says the 12-year-old. It's also so impersonal. Sean Daugherty. Thank you, officer. Say his name. Oh my word. He was found on this hanging from the swing set. Okay, deceased, wearing his stepfather's underpants, pants, shirt. But his own pants and shirt have not been found, but yet his underpants is sitting or on the floor in his parents' room. And not only was his own shirt and pants not found, but one of the lenses on his glasses was also never found. That's weird. Obviously, I don't even know what to say to that.
In the video, the mother states that someone from the York Pocosin Sheriff's Office sent her a text that stated, quote, "time to move on." To our knowledge, that statement was never made. We have done some research and have not been able to locate a text message telling the family to move on. The only text similar to this was a text between the investigator and the mother, where the mother states to the investigator, quote, "it is time to heal." Several theories were presented to the Sheriff's Office investigators by the family. The first theory provided to the family about what happened that day stated that they believed that this was a burglary, and during the burglary, their 12-year-old was sexually assaulted and murdered. However, Sheriff's Office investigators
Okay, so now he's going to clear that up that he wasn't S8. I really hope he wasn't. Taylor said the broken glasses show signs of a struggle, in my opinion. Exactly, and he wasn't wearing his glasses. He just had this bag over his head, but he wasn't wearing his glasses, and he always wore his glasses like he would need to see. So you're going to tell me that a barefoot 12-year-old wearing his stepdad's underpants, pants, and shirt, and his clothing is gone, drops and breaks his own glasses, but one of the lenses just disappears. His own clothes disappear. Trash bags are in the house. That just makes no sense at all. Okay. And he did it to himself? And then he's just gonna waddle over as he's sorry for being like I'm just saying, like I'm trying to make us all understand how ridiculous this sounds. That okay, so he put the bag over his head and then tied the string. Sure, okay. And then in his stepdad's clothes, then he tied a belt around his own waist and arms, strapped to the side. And before that had moved the chair, broken his glasses, and then what? And his feet could touch the ground. That's so crazy.
investigators found no evidence of an intruder, and laboratory and medical evaluations of forensic evidence sent to the laboratory found no signs of sexual assault. The second theory presented by the family was that this was carried out as a military-type operation directed at them, the family, due to their rank in the United States Air Force. And finally, they identified 3 different people based solely on speculation that they frequented the neighborhood. All 3 of these people were located, and Sheriff's Office investigators eliminated them as persons of interest in this incident. We did not address every inconsistency or fabrication from the social media site. We conducted a thorough, professional, and exhaustive investigation. There is nothing whatsoever.
Then why is it still an open investigation? Then close it and give all the answers. Give the documents. Close it so that the family can then do their own investigations. You know what I mean? It's still open.
Ever to indicate that there is a killer in our community. As I stated at the beginning of this video, it is our policy not to discuss these issues in public, particularly when they involve children. However, the social media site has caused great concern within our community. We still extend an invitation to the family to meet.
Oh my word. You know what's caused a concern in the community? Not that there could be a killer on the loose, because that just sounds ridiculous to this guy who's like, they've interviewed neighbors. There's no person of interest. There's no suspects. It's got nothing to do with their high-ranking jobs in Air Force and working at the Pentagon. Psh, that sounds ridiculous to this guy, right? Okay, but you know what's causing the community concern? The family social media posts. What? Really? That's what's causing you concern? Why? Why would that cause law enforcement and the community concern? This family, with their social media.
Meet with members of this agency and the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner to discuss the results of the autopsy and our investigation.
You won't give up those documents, though, will you? Very infuriating. My word. Okay, so let's go back to this. When we look at so we looked at the peach. Okay, now we're gonna continue looking at the posts. So post 4, where's Sean? Maria, Sean's older sister, had been at her tennis match after school. She was rushing home because her boyfriend AJ and his mother were picking up to go to his lacrosse game. When she got home, the front door was locked. She rang the doorbell and knocked, and no one answered. Where's Sean? He was supposed to be home. She called her mother, Ramona, who told her to call Sean and advised that he was probably gaming upstairs. Maria was frustrated. She was in a rush. She called Sean twice and texted 3 times at 4:50 p.m., but there was no response. She decided to run around the back and try to enter through the back door, and that's when she saw him. She froze at that moment, entering a state of shock as she tried to process what she was seeing. The person was hanging from their swing set, unnaturally, with a bag over their head. She looked around trying to figure out if she could get into the house before the stranger got to her. But she realized the figure was not moving, nor was it facing her. Utterly confused, she scanned the yard to make sure she wasn't alone and locked eyes with the landscaper mowing the neighbor's yard, who was also very puzzled and just standing there. Suddenly, confident since she wasn't alone, she came within a 15-foot radius and called out, "Hello?" But there was no response. Thoughts chaotically ran through her mind as she tried to process what she was seeing. The hands and legs looked so familiar. It was Sean. Hysterically, she ran up to her brother and confirmed it was him by looking closely at his hands, which were both bound to his waist by a belt and discolored from lack of circulation. That's how tight the belt was, guys. The belt was so tight around his waist and arms that his hands were discolored from lack of circulation. Screaming, she lifted her brother with one arm in hopes of releasing the pressure from his head and called 911 at 4:54 p.m. with her other hand. She removed him from his hanging position by simply lifting the shoelace-type string over his head with 3 fingers. She brought him down to the ground and performed CPR for 6 minutes with the assistance of the 911 dispatcher until the EMTs took over. Sean was dressed in men's clothing, his arms so tightly bound to his waist that the EMTs made note of how difficult it had been to remove it. They had to unbuckle and move it so that they could administer shocks with the AED. He had a bag over his head, and his glasses were broken and found in the vicinity. His eyesight was so poor he couldn't see without his glasses. How could this clumsy 12-year-old suspend himself in such an awkward position? So remember, the family's writing this, right? We're not calling him clumsy. The family says, how could this clumsy 12-year-old suspend himself in such an awkward position with a bag on his head while his hands were belted so tightly around his waist without being able to see? He was suspended by his chin and not his neck. At any point, he could have stood up and saved himself, but he did not. His feet were dragging on the ground, and his bent knees were mere inches from the ground as well. In fact, normal hanging injuries weren't present. It looked like he had been killed elsewhere and propped ornamentally outside, displayed in men's clothing, and suspended like a doll. His knees were so close to the ground that you could see the bottom of his feet, and they were clean. How could he have perfectly clean feet if he had walked barefoot from the house to the swing set through this swampy spring yard? It was April, and the whole yard was mud and dust. Ramona arrived home from the appointment to find her house swarming with emergency medical personnel, and she jumped out of her SUV and ran toward the commotion. She saw them working on Sean, and in that instant, the life she had lived ceased to exist. As Sean's body jumped through the air with each shock from the AED, she knew they were too late. Through heroic efforts from Maria, they were able to get a heartbeat, but there wasn't enough electricity to sustain it. They would find out later that Sean had actually been gone for some time, and there was no chance he could have been revived. A belt that completely immobilized his arms and hands, a bag over his head, broken glasses suspended by the chin, clean feet, dragging with knees almost touching the ground, a string so thin and loose it didn't even need to be cut, men's clothing, and Sean was gone. You guys, you see? And now we go to post 5. Red lights. As Ramona was driving home from the appointment, Maria called to say that Sean wasn't opening the door. She told Maria to call him. He was probably gaming upstairs with his brother. Oddly enough, all of the traffic lights were green on the way home except the last one. As she sat by the light, a fire engine and an emergency pickup truck came blazing past, and she suddenly felt ill. She muffled under her breath, "Please don't turn right," but they did. She sped up and watched them take the next right into her neighborhood. She thought, "Please, God, don't let them be at my house." The sirens stopped, and she couldn't see the vehicles anymore. She turned left onto her lane and saw them all in front of her house. Ramona threw her SUV into park, told Villa that she was going in, and ran toward the backyard. They had an entrance on each side of the house, but the one on the right side was never used. In fact, from the road, you couldn't tell it was a gate because a bush was too close to it. Everyone was gathered near the gate on the right side of the house, but the gate on the left was wide open. Why? Ramona ran through the open gate on the left and saw everyone gathered under the swing set. She tried to focus and figure out what was happening. Suddenly, she saw this long body with naked legs laying on the ground and EMTs working around him. An officer rushed toward her and told her to move away and let the medics do their job. She heard the AED and saw his body rise from the ground and slam back down. Her knees hit the ground, and from the depths of a place she never knew existed, she screamed, "No." As Sean's body continued going up and down, a million thoughts were going through her mind. What was Sean doing outside? Did he fall? Was there an accident? As these thoughts were racing through the mind, she heard someone yell, "Heartbeat." The police officer again insisted she step further back so that they could do their jobs. It then occurred to her that her toddler wasn't out there. Realizing that he wasn't outside, Ramona turned around to just see Maria running towards her. They both ran into the house with the officer right behind them. As Ramona turned the doorknob, it opened immediately. The door was unlocked. She ran forward and saw the Crocs upside down next to the two closed garbage bags on the floor that were ready to be taken out. She scanned the living room for her toddler and noticed two little legs hiding beneath a pile of laundry on their chair. She yelled his name, scooped him up, and he opened his eyes and started to cry. He was really limp and just out of it. He didn't seem like his normal self. Ramona ran to the front door, and it was locked as Maria had stated. They opened the door and ran outside to the front yard. She noticed a neighbor standing nearby with a landscaper. She ran up and yelled out, "What happened? Did you see what happened?" The neighbor said, "No." She turned towards the landscaper who mumbled, "I don't know him. I don't know him who did it." Okay. I don't know him who did it. She ran over to the other neighbor on the other side who was also mowing the grass, and he too said that he didn't see anything. How could all of her neighbors be outside doing yard work and not see anything? The fence is only 3 feet tall. No matter who she asked, nobody saw anything and nobody knew anything. One neighbor even had several cameras affixed to his house that pointed into her yard, but they were disconnected and hadn't been recording in years. Ramona's husband was in Williamsburg with their middle son at ABA services and at least 35 to 45 minutes away. She needed help immediately, so she called her boss and told him that she thought Sean was dead and he said he'd be right over. She called her husband Jared and could only say that Sean was hurt really bad and that they were trying to revive him. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. He ran into the building, grabbed their son, and jumped into the car. Ramona watched as the ambulance with Sean pulled away, and they wouldn't let her ride with him. She hopped into the first responders' fire pickup truck, and they began backing out into the road. As they pulled out, Maria's boyfriend, AJ, and his mom pulled up. AJ jumped out to console Maria, and Jamie jumped out as well. She ran up to Ramona in the pickup and said, "What the F? Is he okay?" Ramona shook her head no, and asked Jamie to stay with Maria, Via, and the kids. Ramona asked the driver if he had an update on Sean, since the rig was far ahead of them, and he told her to have hope since they were able to get a few beats on the ground. Still in uniform, Ramona walked into the emergency room. They were expecting her. She was guided through a secure door down to where Sean was being worked on. There were nurses and doctors 3 rows deep in the hall, all watching and praying. A woman in the scrubs fell to her knees in prayer with tears pouring down her face. The crowd parted all at once and turned toward her to make way for the physician to come out. She stepped back, shook her head, and just screamed, "No," as the physician informed her that Sean was gone. Oh, my goodness. I'm just reading some of your messages. Oh no, what did the neighbors really think? They're like, nope, didn't see anything. We went over that earlier. Welcome, Crystal. 5 and 2, I believe. Maybe someone setting up the stepfather to look guilty, the boy's underwear in the master bedroom, and him wearing the stepfather's clothes, right? I know. The 2-year-old saw it all and was hiding, it sounds. So scary, right? Wow. On August 24th, this was after the police made their post. They said, "We are disappointed in the response from the York Pocoson Sheriff's Office to our pleas for help. They released a video that's cold, uncaring, and defensive. They attempt to discredit our account of events by stating that our story is untrue. This video and the ME report featured contradict many things that they've said. We are asking them to allow an outside entity to investigate this case since they have no interest in going any further." I'll open that on another tab. I just want to... okay. How long is it? Okay, let's look.
Circulating social media, and with these signs popping up all over the peninsula, the community wants answers.
Losing a child is just one of the worst things that could ever happen to anyone, and we would never wish it on people you didn't even like.
Ramona and Jared Rivas say their 12-year-old son's death is suspicious. Sean Daugherty was found hanging from a swing set in his backyard on April 14th. They have several concerns, one of them being this. The EMT report states, quote, "Law enforcement responded to a residence for a suicide."
When you arrive at the crime scene, the first thing you do is investigate the crime because you don't know what it is.
The Rivas family feels that there are too many questions from that day, to include the way Sean was found, with his arms bound to his sides, bag over his head, wearing his stepfather's clothes. They say he was shoeless, but his feet were clean.
He had nothing on his feet and the feet were totally clean as to get to the swing set this far.
The York Pocoson Sheriff's Office addressing that in a video statement on Tuesday, showing this picture of the swing set, saying the ground was dry. The Sheriff's Office also said this regarding the investigation.
Recent statements have caused concern in the community that the death of a 12-year-old on April the 14th, 2022 has not been fully investigated by the Sheriff's Office and that there may be a killer in our area that poses a threat. Nothing could be further from the truth.
The family doesn't agree, citing several reasons to include Sean's lack of history of depression or suicidality, as shown in this autopsy report.
By the way, when trying to apply for these documents, they say they can't give it to anyone because the investigation is still open. So it's only this news source from everything that we found, scour the internet, that this is the only news source that has something.
We know there's got to be someone out there that did this. Let's find that person and bring them to justice, because Sean deserves it. I mean, he's such a great kid. He deserves to have justice for him.
The Sheriff's Office also shedding light on DNA evidence, stating there was no DNA other than Sean's on the cord from which he was hanging.
We can speculate, they can speculate, and all we're trying to do is put the pieces together.
This community member, who didn't want her identity shown because of the backlash the What Happened to Sean social media site is receiving, says all they want is for the case to be re-examined.
Really love to see those unanswered questions answered, and if that means bringing in an outside investigative service or a second set of eyes, then I don't see the harm in that.
News 3 also reached out to the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner, who is responsible for this finding. Cause of death, hanging. The manner of death is suicide. They said, quote, "When a family disagrees with the cause of death, our office gives the family an opportunity to present any new information that they feel is pertinent to our death investigation. The medical examiner will evaluate the new information to determine if the cause of death and/or manner of death should be amended." Stay with News 3 on air and online for any updates.
Okay, so there's that news clip that we've just seen. If we go back to here, this is a picture of Sean, who died on April 14th, 2022. He was found on a swing set in his backyard. And it's just terrible. So for those of you asking, if you might just be joining now, thank you for being here. We would like justice for Sean Daugherty, and of course, just for the police to care, you know, to if they say they fully investigated it, okay, then close the case or explain why you believe that this happened. Make it make sense, you know what I mean? And that was the peach we looked at. Okay, so we're going back to the posts over here. They say, please sign, help us get our case investigated by another entity. So this would be the change.org petition that I shared with you guys over here. So please do sign this if you can. What happened to Sean? I've got it in my description box because I've already signed it. Can I share it again? Yeah. Copy the link. I'm going to put it in here. If you could please sign it. Not too bad. 21,252. They need to get to 25,000. That's the first milestone. Fill in your name, last name, and email address. And remember to check your email and click the link to finalize your vote. Otherwise, it won't be tallied up here. So let's continue on. August 25th, we are disappointed in the response from the York Pocahontas Sheriff's Office to our pleas for help. They released a video that's called Uncaring Defensive, as we saw this as well. They attempt to discredit our account of events by stating that our story is untrue. We are asking them to allow an outside entity to investigate this case since they have no interest in going any further. We unfortunately do have to address some things that were said in their video. Over the course of several weeks, we filmed the property and its surroundings to see if anyone would revisit the scene of the crime. There's an individual who has filmed numerous times throughout several nights. They showed a red mark on the wall from May 20th, 2022. This was a new red mark. When you wait 5 weeks to collect evidence, there will be new marks. This was one of the many spots throughout the house that were pointed out to investigators. No one knows if the 2-year-old was sleeping during the hour he was alone. No one else was there. Initially, it was assumed that he was, and the mother was grateful that he was unharmed and said so. Later in the evening, when she was reunited with her son, he said that there had been a man in the house. This was disclosed. We refer to the string as a shoelace type string because it was what the autopsy described it as. It's similar in size. It was from a motorcycle bag, and the bag was also on his head. The string, of course, had his DNA on it, as it was on his body. We provide leads to the police in the hopes that they would look into people who were in the area at the time. We didn't realize we'd be mocked for doing so. Shouldn't they be the ones looking for leads? This is what they choose to focus on. Instead of answering a few major questions that have been lingering for some time, Sean's arms were belted tightly to his body. How did he put a bag over his head and a string over that while having belted hands? Sean's glasses were broken. He could not see. Where is the missing lens? Sean did not leave a note. He did not search how to unalive himself. He did not communicate with any strangers online. Sean submitted all of his upcoming assignments online as soon as he got home from school. He also prepared himself a snack, which was left uneaten on the counter. Sean was babysitting his little brother. There are dozens of things that do not add up. We are asking for another entity to take the case over and investigate with a fresh set of eyes. Isn't everyone entitled to a second opinion? Help us by signing our petition to get our case investigated on change.org. So it's change.org / what happened to Sean. Okay. Jessica, yes. Independent second autopsy would be a good first step also. Law enforcement thought Sean was bullied right away. Why? This is so sad. Law enforcement needs to do their job. Yes, so okay, we've gone over an hour already. I want to read these posts because it's very important. Post 6, under the blanket. Ramona said she wanted to see him, and they made way for her to enter the room. He was lying on the gurney, and she knelt beside him on his left side and just grabbed his feet and kissed them. They were so clean and perfect. She knew this would be the last time she'd see him. The sorrow and grief was indescribable, but Ramona's analytical mind was working overtime. What happened? She needed to look. She was alone in the room with some sort of female chaplain, and everything was covered up to his neck with a blanket. She went over to his face and took a look. He was angelic, peaceful, and his face was unharmed. There was no swelling anywhere. His teeth were all intact, and he had clearly been intubated as the tube was still in. He had a neck collar on, and his eyes were half open, clear, green, and not swollen. There was no redness or damage that she could see. She opened his eyelids and saw that his pupils were blown, and in that moment realized that his soul had left his body. The pain was unbearable. She kissed his forehead, pushed his hair up, and just wanted to smell him one last time. He smelled musty. His right hand suddenly popped out from underneath or beneath a blanket, and she leaned over and put it back. She went back to the left and grabbed that hand and held it one last time. She put his left hand into her own and noticed blood in between between the fourth and the fifth finger on his left hand, okay? She thought to herself, good, there's evidence. Something told her to get a phone out and take some pictures. Later, she would notice that these pictures clearly show the marks on his wrist from being bound by the belt, even though the medical examiner reports that by the time she received the body, there were no marks. Ramona stood up and lifted his arm to take a pic, and she suddenly froze. She stared at it and the picture for a second longer and then let out a scream. Something is wrong. My son is wearing my husband's dress shirt. OMG, did someone put him in his clothes? Is someone in the house? The female chaplain ran out to get help. The investigator was in the hall speaking to the physician. Ramona called Jamie's cell and told her that Sean was dressed in Jared's clothing and that someone could still be in the house. Now Ramona's brain was racing. What was happening? Why was Sean wearing his dad's clothing? Suddenly, she saw a replay of Sean's body being hit by AED, and the black underwear in her stomach felt queasy. That wasn't Sean's underwear. That was Jared's. The investigator came into the room to ask what's going on. Once she explained, the investigator asked Ramona to leave the room since it is now considered a crime scene. Ramona didn't realize that from that point on, she would never be able to hold or touch him again. The entire family was robbed of saying goodbye. Wow. Oh my word. The entire family was robbed of saying their goodbyes and the doors closed. All Ramona saw were flashes from the investigator's camera. She stood there with tears coming down her face. Sean was taken away from her. Ramona was directed into an empty room, and soon after that, the door opened and Jared entered. They both began to sob uncontrollably and prayed to God to take care of Sean. Ramona took Jared back to the room just to be close to their son. No entrance back into the room was allowed. While waiting outside, a kind nurse came up to her and gave her a small test tube that contained an EKG strip, a sample of his last heartbeats on this earth. They both cried. Ramona begged for one last look at Sean, but the investigator said no, they were moving him. Whew. As the tears poured from her face and soaked her uniform, she begged and pleaded. He agreed to one last look. A stretcher was wheeled out. They lifted the blanket for a few seconds so they could see his face. His blonde hair popped out. She started to cry, and they wheeled him away. Sure. Okay. Post 7. The ambulance pulled away, and Maria was left in shock and distraught in the driveway. 2 officers were left at the house, a male and a female, and they were waiting for detectives to arrive to begin the death investigation. AJ and his mother, Jamie, began to console Maria, talk to the officer on scene, and help with the toddler. The distress call from Ramona came in on Jamie's cell regarding the men's clothing and a potential intruder in the house. Jamie ran to tell the officers what Ramona had said, and they told her they would take a look. They searched the house, and they did not find anyone inside. A few moments later, a detective arrived and asked to question Maria. Jamie sat beside Maria to supervise the questioning, and Maria began to detail what she saw. Almost immediately, it was clear that the detective thought that this was Sean unaliving himself. The detective asked if Sean had ever tried to harm himself, and Maria said she didn't think so. He asked if she had ever seen any marks on his neck, and she told him he might have had a scratch the week before, but she thought it was from one of the younger boys who is autistic and often grabs necks. Oh boy. He asked if Sean had any problems at school, and she said that he had an issue with 3 girls at school who had been teasing him around Christmas, but that was months ago. Of course, this was April 14th, 2022. And that the issue was resolved. He had friends and had been on a Disney cruise the week before and was high on happiness as a result. Sean had given no indication of depression or suicidal ideations. She could not recall anything out of the norm. She insisted several times that the position Sean was located in would indicate that he had been harmed. It was unnatural, didn't look like a position one could put themselves in. He was hung and dangling near the ground, so much so that he could have stood up fully at any time. She described her account of events in as much detail as she could, as she was still in shock. She sat with AJ and sketched what she saw, but the investigators did not take her sketch. Jared arrived home to a swarm of marked and unmarked vehicles and people he didn't recognize. He parked and headed straight for Maria and hugged her and whispered in her ear, "I love you." With tears in her eyes, she told him that she loved him too. He handed his son off to Jamie and Ramona's boss and hugged his 2-year-old who had also been home. He thanked God that their toddler was okay. He approached Vaya, that's the grandmother, Sean's grandmother, and told her that Sean was gone. You could see the hope drain from her face as her arms fell to her sides and tears streamed down her cheeks. As she moved slowly forward, she grabbed the railing on the front steps to brace herself as she muffled, "My little Sean, my sweet Sean." Memories of holding him as a baby, his sweet smiles, and his contagious laughter flooded her thoughts as she stood in shock. One of the officers approached Jared and asked a few questions. Jared asked him what happened, and he said that when he and another officer had arrived, he knew something was off, so they called in the investigative team. Okay. He said, "This doesn't sit right with me. I don't think your son did this to himself." So there you go. That's like first impression. Jared agreed and said Sean would never hurt himself. The house was locked down and the remaining family members couldn't go inside. One neighbor, an older gentleman who lived alone, the one with the non-operational cameras, brought a folding lawn chair so that Vaya could sit. He hugged her and told her he was sorry. An older gentleman across the street looked on, but would pretend to be busy if his gaze was met. It seemed like the entire neighborhood was watching. The investigators went through and took pictures of the house. They took pictures of the back of the swing set and began to look around and document their surroundings. The family has not been given access to those pictures. A neighbor, Michelle, had stopped by with some pizzas, and the kids ate on the front steps. The female officer asked for Jamie's name and phone number in case they needed an update on the kids. Jamie gave the officer her cell number. While loading up the car to transport the kids to another location, a female neighbor walked over and insisted on talking to Maria. See, that's weird. She's like, Maria, I need to talk to you. She was really skittish, and Jamie kept telling her to leave. She seemed to be well-intentioned, but something was really off. She kept walking away and walking back, just trying to talk to Maria. She kept telling Maria everything was fine, she would be fine. Jamie asked her to stop approaching Maria, and she and Ramona's boss took Vaya and the kids to a hotel on Langley AFB. They all sat and waited for Ramona and Jared to return, knowing that Sean was gone. Marin says, what? So law enforcement knew Sean couldn't have done that? So what's with the a-hole on the news? Right? It's getting interesting, right? Oh my goodness. Okay, so then we go to post 8 empty. The 20-minute drive to the hotel on Langley AFB lasted an eternity for Ramona and Jared. Shock and confusion was setting in. Ramona would painfully cry out for her son as she came to terms with reality. They mustered up whatever strength they had left and made their way to the hotel room to reunite with the rest of their children. Long hugs and kisses were exchanged, and it was clear that no one knew what to say. Jared's phone rang and he walked away to take the call. Ramona scooped up her younger son, who'd been bouncing around on the hotel beds, and asked him what he did with Sean that day. He said a friend came over and was punching Sean, and then proceeded to demonstrate punching motions with his fists. Jared finished his phone call and announced that the investigators had cleared the house and they could go back in. It was practically midnight. How could they be done so soon? Did they even want to return to the house without him? A family decision was made to return to the house, and they packed up and drove home. They pulled up and nothing seemed out of place. The neighborhood was eerily quiet, and from the outside, the house looked untouched. It was hard to believe that anything had even happened. Was this real life or just a bad dream? They grabbed the kids and walked inside. A few things immediately felt out of place, but they couldn't quite pin it down. Everyone gathered in the living room as they all tried to think about the next steps. Ramona went slowly into the kitchen and noted the peach in the bowl on the counter. She then noticed the 2 trash bags tied up on the floor and Sean's Crocs upside down on the floor in front of the bags. She opened the trash drawer and saw that it was lined with new bags. Sean had gathered the trash and put new bags in and left the old bags tied on the floor. She pointed this out to Jared. She also noticed 2 additional garbage bags on the floor, all ripped up. She picked one up to take a look. Strange, she thought, these aren't ours. The bag she picked up had bluish handles, and she only bought bags with red handles. These bags also had large rips in the middle on the side. Whose bags were these and why are they ripped? This all felt wrong, and they were all uncomfortable. More things felt out of place, but everyone wanted to go to sleep. Ramona and Jared walked upstairs to look around. Now here's another one. The house felt really hot upstairs. The heat was set to 85? Who touched the thermostat? Ramona proceeded toward the bedroom and gasped when she entered. In the middle of the path from the bedroom door to the attached master bathroom was Sean's underwear on the floor. Jared ran downstairs and grabbed gloves and a large Ziploc bag, and Ramona picked up the underwear and bagged them for investigators. This was really puzzling. Why would Sean's underwear be on the floor in their room? Jared's dresser drawers were also open. What happened in this room? Jared called the police immediately and asked them to send a patrol car because they didn't feel safe. What if the person who hurt Sean came back? I mean, imagine that fear, right? Jared locked all of the doors, barricaded chairs against them. They both could not believe that they'd never invested in a security system. How naive of them to feel so untouchable and so safe. All of the kids, including Sean's older sister Maria, went to lay in their parents' room that night. They all tried to rest, but no one could settle. The room was filled with tears and quiet sobs. Ramona stood up and went into Sean's room. Her eyes drifted to the top bunk, and she saw his disheveled, unmade bed that he had jumped out of the morning before. She saw his AirPods charging and wondered where the investigators had found his iPhone. She was told it had been found in his room, but where? Why wasn't it on him? She grabbed one of his hoodies, and held it close to her chest, hoping it would provide some comfort. It did not. She sobbed and heaved for hours, afraid she might never sleep again. What happened to Sean? We go for the fingerprints. I think there's 11 posts, as I say. Just hang in there with me. Post 9, prints. They awoke the next morning, hoping it was all a nightmare. But Sean was still gone. Jared called the investigators and asked them to come over to discuss what they had found the night before. Before the investigators arrived, Jamie, AJ's mother, arrived with some food. On her way, she had called the high school guidance counselor to let her know that Sean had passed away the night before and that Maria and AJ would not be in school that day. She also said that Maria and AJ would need several days off and quite possibly some extra help when they returned. The guidance counselor was really upset and said she would take care of everything. Jamie came in and started cleaning up the kitchen for Ramona. While sweeping around the kitchen table, she noticed a very large handprint on the window of the back door. She stopped and stared at it for a moment. Huh? She thought. That's really large and in a weird spot. Why would an adult place their hand on the window pane so high? For what? She put her hand up next to the print and saw that it was much larger than her own hand. She called Ramona over to take a look. Ramona agreed it was an adult print and it didn't belong to anyone in the house. It wasn't just a print, it seemed like there was something on the hand, a residue or film of some sort that really made the print stand out. Ramona said she would show the investigators when they arrived. At that point, Ramona showed Jamie the garbage bags with the bluish handles, and they both went through all the boxes of trash bags in the house. They all had red handles. Ramona exclusively shopped for garbage bags at Costco and bought hundreds at a time. Where did these bags come from? The investigative team arrived at the house. Some went upstairs and then to the backyard to look around. Two sat at the dining room table and interviewed both Maria and Ramona, one after the other. There was one female investigator and one male at the dining room table. They asked if Sean had any enemies. Okay, which is clearly what we all think, right? Does he have any enemies? If there had been, does Sean have any enemies? Does the stepdad have any? Those are my first thoughts, right? If he had been bullied, and asked if he had a bad day at school. They showed Ramona a video of Sean walking the hall with a buddy at the middle school, and nothing seemed out of the norm. He was bouncing around and joking with his friend. This video helped them identify the jacket, flannel, and shorts that he was wearing that day. The selfie he took when he submitted his homework identified the shirt that he was wearing, but they weren't given that picture from the school until about 3 weeks later. My word. The jacket and flannel were found hanging. The jacket and flannel were found hanging together in the house, but they could not locate the shirt and the shorts. They stayed for, the shirt, the shorts, and a lens from the glasses. They stayed for about an hour, questioning both Ramona and Maria about Sean and his state of mind on his last day. Maria and Ramona dutifully answered every question they could, hoping that any information they provided would help them figure out what happened to Sean. They had taken Sean's iPhone, laptop, and iPad the night before. They asked if the family knew the passcode to get into the iPhone, but they did not. They tried a few things, but they couldn't figure it out. The investigators said they would take care of it. Ramona asked if they were going to talk to Sean's friends. They said they would. She gave them contact information for his close buddies. Jamie was washing dishes at the sink and eavesdropping. She couldn't help but think that they were not taking the family's concerns seriously, as each response from the investigators seemed to poo-poo the family and circle back to unaliving himself. She was confused as to why they weren't acknowledging the family's concerns. Katie says, I don't know about Ramona or the stepdad, I'm just saying. Maybe there was DNA in those items. I mean, do you think that the police also went through the house, right, and cleared everything, but then the trash bags were still there, the Crocs were upside down, they didn't take anything, including the underwear? What? So weird. Yes. Am I understanding this correctly? So all this evidence was not considered by law enforcement as suspicious. That is absolute absurdity and completely unacceptable. Yep, that's what it seems like. I mean, they just left things there like, oh, who cares about the ripped up trash bags that came from somewhere else? Don't trust the family. I mean, obviously, these two trash bags out of all the hundreds that have got red handles, these two with the bluish handles, never mind. The underwear in the parents' room, that's nothing, right? Okay, his Crocs just left there. The two trash bags never taken out. His t-shirt and shorts never being found. Okay, then. That is weird. Where is it? Then where is it? If he just unalived himself, where's his clothing? Where's his t-shirt and shorts that he'd been wearing that day, huh? Oh my word. Okay. So here we go. Ramona asked them to take the underwear she found and bag the night before. They reluctantly took them, but did not provide a receipt. She also pointed out the handprint on the back door and asked them to lift the prints to see if they could find a match. There hadn't been any fingerprints taken the night before, and she didn't understand why they didn't take any or how they could have missed it. They lifted the fingerprints and said they would send them out for testing. The two investigators that had been at the table joined their colleagues outside. They congregated underneath a swing set for a few minutes and had a discussion. They walked back to the house, gave their condolences, and headed out. The family was left without any direction, guidance, or any answers whatsoever. Was there even an investigation? Why were they leaving? Ramona and Jamie went into the backyard and looked around. They both found themselves looking up at all of the houses with second floors that could peer directly into their backyard and see everything. They counted 6. 6 houses with a direct line of sight into the yard at all times from the second floor. Who was watching? Ramona called the FBI. A few weeks later, the lead investigator would tell them that they did get a good print from the lift of the hand, but that there weren't any matches in the system. A month later, when they came back for more prints, he said there weren't any good prints lifted and therefore nothing viable to test. So can you see the conflicting stories there? Huh? So 1 minute they say, yeah, they got a good print, but there weren't any matches in the system. And the next thing they say a month later is, well, they came back for more prints, said there weren't any good prints lifted and therefore nothing viable to test. The family does not know if the initial handprint was ever sent out for testing, and they haven't been given any documentation to support that it was. Sean's underwear were also never sent out for testing, and they don't know what happened to those either. Jamie asked who interviewed the baby. I don't think anyone interviewed the baby. It's just Ramona, his mom, that asked him, "What did you do with Sean that day? Like, what happened today?" Right? I think they have moved because today Ramona can't be with us here on this show. I hope she will be with us at some point where we can speak directly to her. And she's at the Pentagon today working. So, and they're not allowed electronic devices in there. So I would assume that means they moved. Yeah. Yeah, this family needs help fast. I agree, Janet. Now we go to post 10, silenced. We're almost there. As you can see here, we're making our way up. It was the afternoon on the day after Sean had died. Nothing seemed to make sense, and they couldn't figure out if any of this was even real. Before the investigators had left that day, they had advised Ramona and Jared against disclosing details of the incident to anyone. Rumors were flying as neighbors whispered about what had happened on Sandalwood Lane. Why wasn't this on the news? Concerned community members called the sheriff's office and were told that there was nothing to be afraid of. The sheriff's office sent investigators to the high school to assure the staff, that there was no threat to the community. And this is the next day, An enormous amount of time and energy was directed toward controlling the narrative on the day after the death rather than toward an investigation. The investigators had called Jared a few times that day to talk about the items that Sean was dressed in and also about the bag that was found on his head. They explained that it was a silver or gray bag with black, I don't know how to say that, SHOEI on it. Immediately, Jared thought of the old motorcycle helmet bags that he had in the garage in a pile for Goodwill, and he and Ramona went into the garage to see if they were missing. There was one missing and one still there, but missing the string. Someone had taken the string out of the 2 bags to suspend Sean, but left the second bag in the garage. This made them really uneasy. Jared and Ramona are both in the military, and every military family knows how much equipment each member accrues over the years. Sean knew there were boxes and duffels of rope, cords, and military-grade 550 paracord all over the garage. If he needed an actual rope, he knew where to find one, as the family used them often for various projects. It seemed like someone literally opened the door to the garage in a rush and grabbed the first thing they could find. They also noticed that a bunch of their boots in the garage had been partially unlaced. Had someone tried to take the laces and realized they wouldn't work? Did they then try to put boots on him? Sean also had his own drawstring gym bags in his room. Why would he not use one of those? Why would he not grab a necktie while allegedly dressing himself in his father's step clothes? The choice of materials baffled them. The investigators asked Jared about the clothes found on Sean. Ramona had taken pictures of Sean that night in the hospital, but only of the dress shirt he was wearing. They didn't have any pictures of the denim pants, as they were not on his body when he was brought into the ER. The investigator described the pants to the family, and they sounded like a pair of Jared's jeans, but they were never shown a picture of either the pants or the belt. They have never identified them and have still not been given access to that discovery. Why weren't the investigators canvassing the neighborhood? Why weren't people being asked for their security footage? Shouldn't we be pulling every camera on the lane to see if there were cars or walkers in the area at the time? Why wasn't anyone doing anything? As the afternoon rolled by, Jamie left to go gather her own children from school. As she stepped outside to leave, she received a call on her cell from the investigator who had questioned Maria the night before. He asked her if she had remembered him, and she said yes. He told her that this was an open investigation and that she was not to speak to anyone about the case. He told her that meant no calls, no gossip, and no social media. She started to feel sick. He told her that he had been flooded with phone calls that were impeding his ability to do his job. She hadn't spoken to anyone other than the school guidance counselor that morning. She had spent the night, that Sean died laying awake in bed, wondering how she would ever let her kids walk or ride in the neighborhood again, praying that her security system covered every inch of the house. Were they really not going to tell neighbors what happened? Why is this all a secret? So here's a bag example here. So that would be the string from the bag and one of these bags found over his head. Did they investigate all ex-spouses? I don't know. Doesn't seem like it. Okay. I don't know exactly what kind of work she does. I believe both Ramona and Jared, so mother and stepdad of Sean, are high-ranking officials in the Air Force and now working at the Pentagon, from what I understand. Okay, and then we go up here to, you can see this is around the neighborhood as well. They say DM for signs, so you can DM them for signs. Oh man, this one. Post 11, smoke. On Friday, April 15th, the day after Sean's death, rumors were flying. Neighbors had witnessed the chaos in Sandalwood and the community was craving information. Some teachers at the high school had caught wind of what happened and the school notified the sheriff's office. The sheriff's office sent a representative to the high school to assure the teachers and staff that there was no threat to the community. Damage control was in full effect less than 24 hours after Sean's death. Over the course of the weekend, things continued to get more and more strange for the family. Meals and flowers from close neighbors were delivered, but the school hadn't notified classmates of what had transpired. The family received inquiries, worried phone calls, and messages on social media from people who had heard something had happened but didn't know what. Community members who called the sheriff's office were again told there was nothing to be concerned about. Ramona framed her favorite picture of Sean and stood it at the base of a tree in front of the house with a candle. Neighbors began leaving flowers, trinkets, and messages for Sean. It was Easter weekend. Local churches and helplines, the grief groups, right, reached out to offer condolences and support. Even though Ramona and Jared stated that they didn't believe that this was him taking his own life, they were consistently met with resistance. They were told that it was typical of a family to be in denial after losing a loved one to this, right? It might take years to make peace with it. No one was listening. Everyone seemed to know better than them, and no one was taking the time to actually listen to what the family was saying. It was maddening. An investigator hand-delivered Sean's glasses on Monday and gave them to the family. They were broken and missing a lens. It was a well-intentioned gesture, as they thought they would want to bury them with Sean. However, the family could not understand why the glasses weren't being treated as evidence. The investigator did not know where the lens was. They weren't in a bag. They weren't tagged. Later, the parents asked if they had been tested, and they were told, of course they were. On Monday, April 18th, a representative from the sheriff's office visited Sean's classes and spoke to his classmates about suicide and informed them of Sean's passing. On Tuesday, April 19th, after all of Sean's classes had been addressed, the school sent an automated voice message from the principal out to each family explaining that Sean had passed away and that grief counseling was available to all students. They also sent an email that echoed the message in the voicemail. After this went out, Ramona received one single phone call that had all of Sean's core 6th grade teachers on the line at the same time. They could not believe that Sean would kill himself and expressed their doubt. They stated that Sean had submitted his homework that afternoon, had walked with them to class, and was in a great mood that day. They were in shock. Some of Sean's peers were interviewed, and Ramona and Jared requested they talk to his best friend. Parents would later call Ramona and tell her that the line of questioning made them uncomfortable, and that it made them feel like they were only looking at suicide as a manner of death. This was not the Sean they knew, and their kids knew. Nothing made sense. Over the weekend, Ramona and Jared visited neighbors and asked if they had seen anything on their security cameras. They asked if the investigators had requested the footage, and they said, nope, they hadn't. Wow. They asked them to please watch their recordings from Thursday and to let them know if they saw anything out of the norm in the area. It was odd that they were the ones canvassing the neighborhood, and they didn't understand why the investigators had not spoken to the neighbors yet. A few neighbors posted in the HOA social media group asking for video and if anyone had noticed anything. The page received a still screenshot from a house on Sandalwood with the landscaper's truck in front of Sean's house, time-stamped 4:36 p.m. Eastern on April 14th, 2022. This was 13 minutes before Maria got home. It was a still shot from a video, as you could see the recording minutes on the bottom of the picture. They asked the neighbor for a full video several times, but they were never given the footage. Why? Ramona and Jared had several calls with the medical examiner regarding her findings. When a forensic pathologist is assigned to a case, she utilizes the body, any evidence she is presented with from the investigators, and theorizes how the decedent passed based on a combination of fact and opinion. In fact, the lead investigator was listed on the autopsy as present during the exam, as well as the person who brought evidence to the medical examiner for measurements, etc. The ME was given the string that had been found on Sean's neck, the articles of clothing on his body, and the belt that had tied his arms down. She sent off several samples for testing and also completed a perk test. Once the ME was done with the body, it was released and driven down to Southern Pines, NC, for the funeral. The family packed up the SUV and drove home to North Carolina, unable to divert their eyes from the one empty seat in the back, which is Sean's. Now, here is a picture. Can we make it bigger? So, Mr. Red Flag landscaper who said, I don't know him who did it. Remember that? Remember when the landscaper was across the road? When Maria got home and then Ramona got home, and then the landscaper, they look, and Ramona says, what happened? He says, I don't know him who did it. Remember that? Oh, thank you. Shui. Is it Shui or Shui? Shui. Thank you. When a proper investigation is done, they take everything that could be lead to a suspect. And I mean everything. In this case, that's not done by far. Very strange, lack of interest or cover-up. Thank you, Undead. I think so too. It just, I don't understand it. Thank you, Rochelle Pronzo. Prayers for Sean and his family. This is heartbreaking. This is so much larger than a simple self-unaliving. Yep. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so here at 4:36 p.m., 13 minutes before Maria got home, here is this. Did they say landscaper? I'm just making sure. The landscaper's track, right? Wait. Yeah. Page received a screenshot with a landscaper's truck in front of Sean's house at 4:36. Oh, man. Now who's the landscaper? Why don't they look at... Oh, so that's all the posts. Yeah, those are all the posts. That's what we got. Landscaper, yeah. So, I don't know about you, but landscaper is a major red flag to me in this case, and why they won't investigate who he even is and why the hell his truck was out there and what he saw 13 minutes before Maria got home. 13 minutes before. Yep. So for Sean to have already been deceased for quite a while, as Ramona said, you know what the medical examiner said, he's going to be someone who knows something, right? And it's right in front of their house. Yes. That's the thing. Rastafari, they are trying to maintain the hood local reputation. Could be the child of law enforcement who did it. Check if any were at the same school as Sean. I know, who was he? And they should definitely question the landscaper. I mean, don't you think it's weird that when Ramona's like freaking out and looking around, I mean, her son has just been found like this, like on the swing set. Maria took him down, was doing CPR, medical examiners arrived and everything, police officers, and then Ramona's running around, which is Sean's mom, and then she sees, whoa, these neighbors, that one's like mowing the lawn, and that one, whoa, there's a landscaper standing there. She's like, hello, what happened? And his answer was, I don't know him who did it. Okay, then. Oh, you're sounding very sus to me. And I wish I was there. So we could be boots on the ground. It just makes me angry, man. I really feel for Sean, 12-year-old Sean Daugherty. I hope I say his surname correct. I've tried all day to say correctly. What happened to Sean? Dougherty. Hello, Lieutenant Peter Pronzo. That's the thing, Jessica. How do you know he was a he? He says, I don't know him. I don't know him who did it. Interesting. Oh, yeah. This happened in Virginia, if anyone's asking. York, Virginia, I believe. What is wrong with the people in that neighborhood? So weird. Are they all like, no idea. Anyone want pizzas? Folding chair? I mean, I guess it's sweet of neighbors to be like, it's okay. We'll bring pizzas. Sit on the chair. Oh, man. At the same time, I'm not law enforcement at all, but if I was and I was in the area, I'm going to scrutinize every single neighbor there. So, why did you bring the pizzas? Why did you bring the folding chair? Who's the landscaper? Where did you hire him? Got a business card? And then go to that landscaping company and friggin' search everything. Even this car that we see there, look up the license plate number. Who does it belong to? Why? Look if they have a criminal record. Look if their prints were found anywhere at the scene. Right? What happened to Sean exactly? So if we could share that, I'm going to put this one more time on the bottom here. If you have any information that would aid the investigation, please email whathappenedtoshawn@gmail.com, or you can call the tip line at 804-905-8613. As I've said, we are on the family side and the private investigator. This platform is for them, doors wide open. If they do ever want to be here on Grizzly True Crime, I have made contact with them, so that could happen. So make sure that you are subscribed and hit the bell so that you know when that actually happens, and don't miss out, because most of you stayed here throughout the stream, and I thank you so much. Please hit the like button and share this. It's not for me. It's so that we can get the awareness out there. We need to get this case in the algorithm. Please tag Brian Enton, News Nation, Ashley Banfield, all the media companies you can, everyone you could think of, tag them, tweet them, nag them. We've got to get this case out there, right? Wow. Okay. Yeah, why was the air conditioning? That's the thing. So there's a peach in a bowl. There's Sean's Crocs upside down next to the trash. There's 2 foreign trash bags ripped up. His shirt and shorts are never found. He's wearing his stepdad's clothes. And the bag over his head and the string comes from something from the garage. And there were some laces that someone was trying to untie. Just makes no sense. Had to be someone local. The neighbors are like not getting involved. Thank you for this coverage. G. Sad the stream has to end. Thank you for being here. This is what I want to know as well. This is interesting. Have the parents noticed this landscaper as a frequent person doing yard work in their neighborhood? That would be a good question to ask, right? Like, what do we know about this landscaper? Because now his truck is there, and he said something really weird. So that's already 2 strange things. I don't know him who did it. Okay, whoa. Who said him? Who said anything about anyone? In fact, law enforcement says no one. There's no one else. I mean, they even scan for footprints, for boot marks, for anything. Yeah, all that he did it on his own. Bull spit. Yes, the family has hired a private investigator. Yes, so I've made contact with them. You can go here here's the tip line, what happened to Sean? And you can see a lot here. On April 14, 2022, Sean Daugherty passed away unexpectedly at his home in Yorktown, Virginia, under suspicious circumstances. He was a 6th grader at Tabb Middle School, and he was only 12 years old. Never in our wildest dreams, specifically in 2022, did we think that an investigation could be so biased and assumption-based. We have been dismissed repeatedly. They will tell you we are crazy, unable to let go. They will tell you it was suicide and it's a cut and dry case. They will say they will say suicide never makes sense. All we ask is that you pull up a chair, hear us out, and come to your own conclusion. I know now I've said the word a few times. It's hard the whole time to talk in code. I really try. Unalive oneself never makes sense. All we ask is that you pull up a chair, hear us out, and come to your own conclusion. We think you'll agree that there are way too many things that don't add up. Help us find out what really happened to Sean. If you have any information that would aid in the investigation, please email whathappenedtosean@gmail.com or call the tip line at 804-905-8613. The other thing is you can do, so call to action. What can we do? Like, share, hashtag what happened to Sean, hashtag Sean. Make sure you spell the surname correctly. I've seen a couple of podcasts not spelling the surname correctly. So that is how you spell it. Daugherty. Sean. Sean. Okay. So hashtag Sean Daugherty. Use that. You could even say hashtag Virginia if you want. But let's use that and what happened to Sean as hashtags on social media. You can email. You can reach out, you can get flyers, you can get banners if you are in the area as well. Then you can sign the petition, which is the What Happened to Sean on change.org. Thank you to everyone who has signed. Let's see how you guys are doing here. We've got to get this to 25,000. And you guys know when we've covered the Daniel Robinson case, which I'm still in contact with David Robinson weekly, sometimes daily. And there's still no answers in that case, which is very sad. But we could see that I know you guys can make an impact here on the signatures. So now 21,333 have signed. Let's get it to 25,000. You can fill in your first name, last name, and email address. Remember to click the link in your inbox. It sometimes goes to spam. Click the link to make sure that yours gets tallied up here. So let's sign the petition. You can also, follow the Facebook group, as we say. Follow the What Happened to Sean Facebook group. You can get lots of information there and daily updates and things like that. What happened to Sean? There's a GoFundMe as well. They say we've hired an outside investigative firm out of pocket and are pushing for the local sheriff's office to turn this case over to the state police or the FBI to investigate as a homicide. So you can donate to this as well. I'm going to pin all these links in the comments. Thank you as well to the mods who've shared this throughout the stream. So we can donate to the GoFundMe, sign the petition, follow the pages, share all over social media, and don't just do it today. Try to do it tomorrow and the next day, and the next, if you can. I sometimes fail at that too, where I don't mean to, but like sometimes, to try to be active in all these cases we cover every day is kind of hard, right? But whenever it pops into your mind, share a little something. Go on Twitter, share it. Even if you just come back to the video and share that and use the correct hashtags, that would be really great. Oh, Karen says, what do you think happened to Sean? Oh boy. Of course, I think of the families. So I don't like to speculate in any graphic way or whatever, but they're also thinking there's red flags, right? So to me, the way that he was found on the swing set and everything I hear, the fact that a lens from his glasses was taken and his t-shirt and shorts, the trash bags ripped up, the way and everything, it's like as if someone, as they said, positioned him like a doll, like a staging, right? Which really, it's either someone who has something against the stepdad, so it's kind of like a revenge crime and like making a statement, or it's a serial killer type. A weird, case if it is, because what's the motive unless the motive is really just serial killing? It just feels very much like trophies were taken, staged, nothing makes sense, all of that. And sometimes if there is a serial killer in the area, of course, law enforcement might say, no, there's nothing. You don't have to fear a thing. Because that could just be like major panic, right? But just from everything I know, as you guys may know, before I started YouTube, I was a true crime author and podcaster. And I wrote 4 true crime books, and they're all about serial killers because that's what I usually like to study the most, right? And so I'm actually being interviewed tomorrow by the US Sun about my Dahmer book, and because of the Dahmer Netflix series that just came out that I've been talking about on Twitter. So they've reached out to me and asked if they can interview me about my thoughts on the Dahmer series. So I'll be excited to share that with you guys. But to me, it just, this case is just very red flaggy. And if it is speculatively, red flag, someone like a landscaper who just waits for the perfect opportunity. You just never know. It could be someone who's done this before and it's gone undetected for quite a while, right? Thank you. Gazina says, thank you, Grizzly True Crime. You did an excellent job on sharing, spreading awareness of Sean's case. Thank you so much. Thank you for signing the petition. Remember to go to your email. I always say it. I know I nag a little bit, but if you don't click the link in your email address, it doesn't tally it up. That's the problem. Then they're going to miss out on some signatures. Thank you. The Aussie Mozzie says, thank you, everyone who signed and or donated to the petition. Thank you. Yes. Thank you. Yeah, tomorrow. So I'll let you know when the article, I don't know when the article will be out, which will feature me and my books and stuff. I mean, I know Dharma like the back of my hand. Not that, I don't know, that feels like a weird flex. But really, I studied him a lot. Like, to write that book, whew. So, yeah, if you think the Netflix series is bad and graphic, shame. Don't read the book. There's a lot more details. But they did such an excellent job at that series. Thank you for clicking the email, yes. Please ground yourself after the slab. I will do that. I've got very good grounding techniques. I will do that. I will definitely let you know. Thank you, Rochelle. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to share on Twitter. We're going to share on Facebook. Okay, Twitter, Facebook. You can share this video on Facebook too. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Let's make TikToks and things. Sign the petition. Donate to the GoFundMe if you can. Share this, like this, and continue to share hashtags. Let's do all of those things, and let's show the family that we support them. We hear them because they haven't been heard for months. There's only a few podcasts that have picked this up, and they've done a very good job. But it's like such a few people. It's not like mainstream news and like, oh my word, can you believe this? We need to make sure that this gets there, right? Oh my word, Annette, how old is your youngest? How old is your youngest, I might ask? Does it have an age restriction, by the way, the Dharma series? Because damn, it should. Yeah, this case is infuriating. We all need a moment after this case. So yes, if you are feeling triggered, I'm so sorry for you. Grounding techniques, I'm sure if you don't know what that is, just look it up. You'll find some. Make sure you look after yourself and your mental health. It is a very disturbing case to think of a 12-year-old being found like that. It is very disturbing and very sad. So I'm really sorry if you feel upset by any of it, but thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for participating and showing this family that we have their backs. Okay. So yeah, so much evil to confront. Keeping on, everyone. Yes. Yeah, I'm excited to get a hard copy of this. Thank you so much, Simply Stranger. You did a great job. Been listening in the background while I work. Thank you so much. And thank you for the stickers and things. Thank you guys for showing support for the work that I do. I really appreciate it. And that's the thing. I can't believe more platforms aren't covering this case. And when it's so suspect and he and his family need justice. Thank you, Gisela. Thank you also to Rose at 901 Lulu on Twitter for inspiring me to cover this case because that's where I first saw it. Rose was sharing a bunch of tweets. So Twitter is very useful if you don't have it, you guys. Join the Grizzly Twitter family. We've got a family building up there. It's great. So thank you to all of you who do always, tweet things out and retweet my stuff. I really appreciate it. But yes, thank you to Rose for bringing awareness for this case as well, so that, we could become aware of it as YouTubers and start sharing it. And I hope that other YouTubers will see this and also share it. You're like, bro, it's me too. Yeah, Rose is awesome. You say, can I do a video on the Dharma series? I might do that on Patreon if you're interested in hearing my full podcast episodes. I think I have 8 episodes on Dharma. That is available on Patreon. And so all my podcast episodes are there. My art is on there, things like that. And I've been doing some streams talking about the Dharma stuff on there. So I do it there just because I've done the podcast so much before, and it's all just in one place where I know the audience, I think they enjoy it there on Patreon, right, guys? Thank you, J.M. Brink, a little tip in the tip jar with big thanks. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Aaron says, how wonderful to see you all. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Aaron. It is wonderful to see everyone here, right? Okay. All right. Thank you. Yeah, Patreon. Thank you. But Katie, you're on Patreon. There's so much Dharma content on there. All my podcast episodes are there. But yes, I find that my audience here on YouTube is not quite where my true crime career started out. Like it was dark. Okay, it was like Gacy, Dahmer, Ted Bundy, and Eileen Wuornos. And I thought that's what my channel would be all about, but it just didn't go in that direction. So I'm very grateful for you guys. But if you want to see like Dahmer, and here Dahmer, Gacy, Ted Bundy, and Eileen Wuornos full podcast episodes, which is kind of like the audiobook. If you want to hear it there, I mean, I think it's like $1 or $2 to join Patreon, and then you get access to all the content because all the content offers the exact same benefits. All right, thank you, everyone. Is there anything else that I need to share with you? Hold on 1 second. Remember when we shared the Sherry Papini? This is waffle time quickly. You know Sherry Papini, when we snarked it up on that case? Well, you guys, I made a product for you guys as you asked me to. Puckett. If you didn't watch that, please watch the Sherry Papini episode, the deep dive, okay? It's an inside joke on Grizzly 2 Crime now. I know it's a crime case. There were no murders committed in that case, okay? But Puckett is available. And this is on, it's linked to my new channel. So I'll pin it in the comments afterwards as well. My second channel, When Life Gives You Lemons, gets snarky. Okay, this is my other. I've got 2 new merch ranges for my second channel, and I put this on a different store. It's not Redbubble or Teespring. It's a different store which I'm linking to that channel, so I could try out all these different services and see the quality and stuff. Okay. Oh yeah, Ride or Die. Thanks, Jill, for reminding me of that. We've got that now as well. Ride or Die merch. So, sorry, I'm not trying to plug my merch now. I'm just showing you guys what an update there is on my second channel. And how do I share this now? Teespring. Where did I share it, you guys? It's on Patreon, right? There's a lot of podcast episodes on Patreon, including a cannibal series, if you are interested in that. So, oh, here we go. I'm going to show you this Patreon post. They were the first to see this, and they've got a special discount code. It's called Grizzly Ride or Die, established 2021. That's what it says, because this channel was established in community. So you can get your Grizzly Ride or Die merch on my Teespring store, grizzlymerch.com. There's a notebook as well. So there you go. There's even kids' clothes, as you can see. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because, we needed it. We needed some Puckett merch. Of Puckett? The backstory? I'm going to do this. What you will know if you watch this. Let me show you. We go here. Oh boy, I see they're doing a hurricane watch. So here's my channel, right? Oh yeah, I was watching Harsh Reality. Hey, Harsh. I was still busy with that video, actually. Now remind me. Okay, now where is it? This one. Sherry Papini Criminal Complaint Deep Dive. So that is where the Puckett thing comes from. And I think it's in the second half. But if you listen to this, it was a classic. If you need a pick-me-up, because true crime is very grim, okay? If you need a pick-me-up, though, I would say listen to this one. As much as a true crime case you don't think it would be, it's just like so ridiculous. The story wrote itself. So go check that out, okay? You just go to videos and it's right here, okay? All right. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate you all. And I will see you again soon. I'm always working on lots of cases to cover and gathering all the information and trying to make sure I have time for gym as well. That's my new thing. So yeah, if you want behind the scenes updates and things like that, that's all on Patreon. Thank you so much, Erin. You say that was an excellent live. Thank you, mods. Yeah, if you need a pick-me-up, buy some merch. Puckett. Just buy some. Just Puckett. I'll make sure to link that merch because I don't know if it's linked on my other channel yet in the pinned comments afterwards. Okay. So everyone, take care of yourselves and I will see you again soon. Let's play the little outro. Bye.